Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're shifting gears entirely.
Yeah, a big shift.
We're not breaking down a market IPO or some geopolitical flashpoint.
Yeah.
Instead, we are diving deep into just a profoundly powerful personal story.
A real testament to human resilience.
Exactly. When life delivers its absolute worst.
We're looking at a narrative called Grief to Purpose, Rahul's unyielding comeback story. And it's just, it's an incredible case study when you look at high-stakes personal transformation.
Right.
So our mission today is to get past the inspirational quotes and really trace the roadmap, the psychological pivot points that took this paralyzing grief and turned it into massive, measurable impact.
That's it. We want the transferable insights, the architecture of that transition. And we have to start where the source material does, with the foundation of his life and the specific sudden shock that just ripped it all apart.
It centers on this one moment. One boy, one call, one decision, and everything changed forever.
So before this moment, before February 2021, Rahul's life was all about discipline, total focus.
He grew up in a small town in India.
Right. But his ambition was global. He wanted to be an engineer, but not just to get a job. He wanted to build something revolutionary and really to make his father proud.
The sources paint him as almost like monastic in his focus.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Brilliant student, always at the top of his class, and he deliberately avoided the whole college social scene. The parties, the friendships, all of it.
And his entire world was built on this very specific, very rigid structure.
A very tight structure.
His father was a teacher, kind of his moral compass, and his mother was this quiet, constant pillar of support.
And that structure is so important to understand.
It's the critical psychological baseline. When someone is that driven, that focused, and their life is so reliant on one central figure, in this case, his father's approval, the shock absorber for a crisis is, it's almost non-existent.
So the tighter the structure,
the more devastating the rupture is going to be.
Yeah. And the rupture was instantaneous. The sources give us almost forensic detail on the exact moment.
February 14th, 2021.
A date that's supposed to be about love, but for him, it became a date of just profound pain.
It was that evening, just after 7 p.m.
His phone flashes. 17 missed calls.
17.
All from Ma.
His mother.
That number alone, that immediately tells you something's terribly wrong. It's a collapse of normalcy. His hands were already shaking when he called back.
And the instant he hears her voice, which the source says was just broken, unrecognizable,
the world just stops.
And the entire foundation of his life, everything he built, it was reduced to 5 words.
Just 5.
His mother said, "Beta, Papa's no more."
The sources describe a total collapse. He just dropped to the floor, not just crying, but trembling.
Repeating that one question over and over again. Why?
And that visceral loss is so important. It wasn't just losing a loved one. For him, he lost his strongest, most foundational support system.
He lost the reason for the entire life he built.
So what follows is, what you'd expect, a complete withdrawal, paralysis.
He stopped talking to his friends.
Stopped working on his projects. The sources talk about him just staring at walls, wondering how he could possibly build a future when the audience for his success, his father, was gone.
And this is the critical juncture in any story about grief, right? The pain demands that withdrawal. Most people get stuck there in that frozen inertia.
But this story is about the pivot.
It's about how he made a conscious decision to redirect that overwhelming emotional energy.
And that redirection, it came late one night. It was around 3 a.m. He's sitting in the dark, and he just opens his diary.
This isn't just writing something down. This is the cognitive breakthrough.
Yeah.
When he couldn't find a reason to live for himself, he chose to live for the legacy of the person he lost.
He writes a single line.
His war cry, the mission statement that defined everything that came next.
I will not quit. I will live the life he wanted for me.
That is a high-level strategic shift. He turned an internal crisis into an external, measurable commitment.
And what is so insightful is how he immediately connects this to his father's philosophy.
Right.
He was on that typical path, big tech, high salary.
Like all his peers.
Right. But he pivots, guided by something his father always said. Real success is helping those who need it the most.
And that decision is probably the most brilliant part of this whole comeback.
How so?
Because when you're grieving, if your purpose stays internal, like just making money for yourself, it's brittle. It can break easily. Rahul chose an external, legacy-driven purpose.
He didn't chase a job anymore.
He chased a solution for an overlooked group. He realized that pursuing his father's dream was the only way to keep his father, alive in his work.
So he defines the project based on that need, not on profit, not on prestige.
Right.
He creates this small, focused tech solution, a digital platform to help farmers detect fake seeds and fertilizers.
Which is a huge, quiet crisis in Indian agriculture. No big tech company was touching that problem.
It's too niche.
Exactly, and that choice insulated him. When your goal is rooted in that kind of deep purpose, the failure and rejection that are bound to come, they don't feel like personal attacks.
We feel like tests.
Yes, tests on a sacred mission. If he had been building some social app, he might have quit after the first no, but because this was tied to his father's vision, the commitment was existential.
Let's talk about that commitment, because it wasn't just an idea. It was a complete overhaul of his life.
The discipline was extreme.
Waking up at 5 a.m., working 16 hours a day, skipping every single social event, parties, holidays, all of it.
He wasn't really seeking success, not in the way we think about it. The sources suggest he was desperately seeking meaning to justify his own survival.
And this brings us to the persistence test. This is where most comeback stories just end.
They fail because of a lack of sustained commitment against doubt, and Rahul's path was just filled with it.
People laughed at him.
Outright ridicule. Investors rejected him. Professors told him the idea was too risky, too niche.
Even his friends thought the grief had just driven him mad.
The sources are blunt about the costs. He failed 3 times. Definitively failed.
Which means starting over from scratch each time.
And the details of his sacrifice are they're stark. We're told he skipped meals all the time, but then there's this one detail that's just incredible.
He sold his laptop.
He sold his personal laptop, the very tool of his trade, just to buy server space.
That's the point where commitment and obsession start to blur.
It is. You have to understand the gravity of that. For an engineer, selling your laptop is like a novelist selling their only typewriter. It's the ultimate burning the boats moment.
There was no safety net left.
None. He was trading his immediate survival for the chance at the larger purpose.
And we have to stress the timeline here. This wasn't a quick turnaround. The sources make it clear that this struggle against all this resistance stretched out. Days turned into years.
Years of just grinding.
It's critical to take away that his consistency, those 16-hour days, that was his response to the trauma. He wasn't just being persistent.
He was building a protective routine. That rigorous focus filled the massive void his father's loss had left. He literally replaced the energy he would have spent grieving with the energy of building a legacy.
So what does all that sacrifice finally yield?
The breakthrough. It finally comes in 2024. The platform is polished, it goes live.
And because it addressed such a specific, urgent need.
The adoption was explosive. The impact wasn't just financial, it was sociological. Within 6 months, it helped over 50,000 farmers and their villages.
The story got coverage, government support.
It became a human interest story, not just a tech story.
And then comes the ultimate validation. The moment that closes the circle, it wasn't about money.
No, it came from the very institution that doubted him. The same college invited him back years later as their chief guest.
So what was his message from that stage after everything he'd been through?
Well, he didn't talk about code or investors. He spoke directly to the room, and he delivered the essential takeaway. He said, I'm not gifted, I'm not extraordinary, I just never gave up.
I lost my father, but I promised myself I won't lose his dreams.
And that brought the entire audience to their feet.
What he proved definitively was the source's central idea. No matter how broken life leaves you, you always have the power to rebuild.
And that your pain can be your power if you choose to channel it.
Right. If we synthesize all this, what he teaches us is that resilience isn't just bouncing back.
It's bouncing forward into a path that demands more of you than the old one did. He took the darkest moment of his life and he completely redefined success for himself.
Shifting the metric from personal gain to external service.
And that's what made him unbreakable. The greatest comeback isn't the one that restores your old life. It's the one that builds a fundamentally stronger, more purposeful new one.
This whole deep dive into Rahul's story, it's just a stunning reminder of that potential. He didn't just cope with his pain.
No, he weaponized it.
He exchanged that heavy, passive burden of grief for the productive fire of active purpose.
Absolutely. Defining his existence by his commitment to his father's values, not by the depth of his own sorrow.
So here's the final thought for you to consider based on what we've analyzed here. Rahul succeeded because he made his purpose external and legacy-driven. He was fighting for something beyond himself. So if your story matters and someone out there needs the specific fight and spirit that only you have, What project or what purpose could you unlock by shifting your focus from internal pain to an external strategic reason?
Think about how turning your darkness into that kind of constructive fire might fundamentally alter not just your future.
But someone else's life as well. We'll leave you the thing on that.